Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Velero community meeting / open discussion. I'm coming to you live from All Things Open in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's why I'm wearing a mask. I'm still inside the event here. So if you have any status updates, please add them in there. If you have any discussion topics, please add them in the hacking video as well. So we'll get started here. I think this will be a shorter meeting because Bridget is out on PTO this week and next week, I believe. And we'll just get started. So first up, we got status updates. Dave, how was KubeCon?
Yeah, all these status updates. I think Bridget will actually be back next week. So
next week, yes, that's right.
Yeah, so KubeCon was good. There were people who attended. It was kind of sparse, but it was good to go. Had some good discussions there on where we're going next with things like Astrolabe. So I think it was good. Nice to actually see some people. I'm sure you're kind of getting some of that out there as well, huh?
Yeah, it's fantastic. This is the first conference I've been to in 2 years. So it's fantastic just to meet some people here, for sure.
And if you didn't go to this one, you missed the good US one, because next year's will be in Detroit.
I think that'll be super interesting, though. I'm looking forward to go to Detroit. I'm also looking forward to go to Valencia next year.
That's definitely on my list.
Yes. Cool. So you got some good feedback on Astrolabe at KubeCon?
Yeah, we did talk to a couple of the partners there, and we need to do more follow-ups with other people as well.
Fantastic. All right, we got 2 discussion topics, so let's dive into them.
Yeah, so just the item snapshotter API. I've had the PR sitting out for a little bit. I should put the number in, but I haven't heard any comments back yet. So we'll have time during the 1.8 release to make any additional changes. But I'm pushing to move forward with the code review and just get that merged. So if anybody has any comments today, it's a good time. But otherwise, just go ahead. Feel free to make them on the PR. Or after we've merged, we can continue to make changes.
That sounds great. Any questions, comments around the item snapshotter API today? All right. Next up, we have the Cube Builder controller namespace mix-up.
Oh yeah, so this was brought up by, was it Wenkai who brought it up? But he found out that if you had, if you created a server status request, well, I guess I could bring up the, oh yeah, thanks. Thanks, Jonas. So Velero has something called a, oh yeah, that was my fix. If you scroll down, there's fixes 4200 and 4052. The one I'm talking about is 4052. That's the one, yeah, the other one. Reasoner, that's Wenkai, right?
This is Daniel.
Daniel, sorry, it's Daniel. Daniel brought it up, and yeah, so you can see that if he created a SSR, server status request resource, in the Cube system namespace, the Velero controller for SSR would try to work on it, and that's not what it should do. It should only work on things that are in its own Velero namespace, because these controllers are in Velero namespaces. And so the reason is because SSR controller was modernized to fit the Cube Builder framework, and in that conversion process, we didn't put a restriction on it, so it worked on everything in the cluster. So the fix then is a 1-line change, and thank you to Dave Smith-Uchida who went ahead and approved it. Just need one more approval from anyone, and it could get merged. But and then I've done some testing with it. It passes our E2E tests, Velero E2E tests, and because it's affecting our team, Raphael and I will also be doing further testing with Tanzu Migrator.
Now, is there a test or an E2E test or something that will catch this? I know this isn't, the reason I ask is this isn't the first time we've had this kind of problem in the past. I know, at least a year ago, maybe longer, I remember hitting some issues where when I had two Veleros running at different namespaces, they were looking at each other's and, put some fixes in place at the time. And now this is kind of this is different code, but it's the same kind of problem. I'm just wondering what kind of testing we have to make sure this kind of regression gets caught.
So we don't. I think that's a good idea. So, Frankie, could you just put in an issue that we should have an EDA test that, it's kind of a negative check to make sure that we're not looking in the wrong places?
Absolutely. Yep. I could put up an issue and
Yeah.
probably even work on it.
If you have time. I mean, eventually it's going to wind up, but yeah, certainly just, try in some different namespaces like the default namespace or something and make sure nothing happens. I'm not sure how exactly we can make sure nothing happens, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the key here, and I guess the problem is there's just different controllers, is that, when you create a Velero CR and, namespace 1 and you have Velero namespace 2, they don't interact, so because the real world use case where this fails is if you have two different Veleros running in the same cluster, serving different roles and they're taking each other's CRs.
Exactly. That's the
Cool.
use case we have with Tanzu Migrator.
it's a security hole too, because we're only
Right.
supposed to respond to CRs in that namespace, and that namespace may have, RBAC restrictions on it.
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty bad.
Yeah, and we're going to start seeing this too, because we're at the moment we're not doing this, but on the kind of MTC OADP side, we're going to probably get to the point relatively soon where we're going to be having one Velero for migrations in the cluster and another for backup and restore in the same cluster. So which it sounds like it's kind of what you're running into as well. So it's the same kind of scenario where you really need these two Veleros looking at their own stuff and not elsewhere.
Yep, exactly.
This is great. So we
Well-
need more review on this.
Yeah. We'll just need one more person to approve and it could be merged. And then I'll go ahead and work on testing. Or, well, I'll make an issue for testing and then pick it up if I have time.
Awesome. Thank you, Frankie.
And I have, if we have time, I have a question about the design for issue number 2488. I proposed something and I wonder if I'm misunderstanding. I feel like what I'm proposing is kind of awkward and my understanding is not 100% clear. So maybe this is a good place to get clarity on this. But this was brought up. I thought I might pick it up. And what was the problem? Yeah, here were my assumptions. Well, I guess we should probably just read the description of the problem as opposed, and then we go over my assumptions. So the server status, which by the way we don't have, I don't think we have a server status.
There's like the internal, and then I guess you pull it with the server status request.
That's what I was thinking is server status request.
I'm kind of wondering why we have a server status request rather than simply updating our status on a regular basis. But
and I feel like we have to create this. So our server status request gives the Velero server version, client version. That's it right now. So we're going to have to add a ready kind of to the spec or no, it would be in the status. We would have to add this ready status. Okay, that's fine. We'll add it to the server status. It's weird. People are trying to get the version and now they can use this. Oh, thanks, Scott, for approving that. Okay, so fine. Well, instead of just looking at the version of Velero version, by the way, Velero, if you type in Velero version, that's what creates the server status object. And so now, I guess if you want to see the server status, you'll type in Velero version to see it and see this ready state. And it will become ready when all backup storage locations are available. And at least one of them is a default and exists. Okay, great, I could do that. And then we'll add another status called partially ready, and that's when any of the BSLs are unavailable, or if, yeah.
So this is a good thing to write a short design doc, like a one pager, that just explains what's going to happen and lays out these phases. And we're going to need to do things like, I mean, version probably shouldn't be the command that you use to actually get the status. We should probably add a status command. These things always
Mhm.
grow, right? But
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you're saying that version will trigger this creation of the SSR object, server status request object. And then you're saying that maybe I could create another command saying like Velero server status, something like that, and then put
right,
in a design
or
doc.
we might even just change the design. I'm not sure why we're creating a server status request and asking it to fill in the status right now, because that's a little weird, don't you think? I mean, I don't know. That
it's
doesn't quite seem like
bloated.
a Kubernetes API.
Yeah, I think it's bloated. We should be just continuous updating the status of an object instead of request one.
Yeah, that would be my
Now,
thought.
for this one, yeah, this is a good design question. In the current way server status works is you type Velero version to create the object.
Mhm.
Before that, there's nothing to update. Like I like your idea. I like what you and Rafael said. You said that the server status should continuously be updated, but there is no object until you type Velero.
Right. Well, we can create one. I mean, the
version.
server can
Yeah.
certainly the server can create one. You know,
Okay. As part of the design. Okay. So create a maybe the first thing that happens when Velero is
But
installed.
do installation, yeah, do installation, create the server object,
Mhm.
and then you populate that status with like new, right? And then
Yeah.
after that,
and
Now-
that also lets us do some other things. We won't do it initially,
Mhm.
but we can use this actually as a lock to keep more than one Velero process from running in the same namespace.
More
'Cause
than
we've
one
had that-
Velero.
We've
Okay.
had that issue where it's possible to, you know, if you start like another pod running Velero, it's possible for them to like fight with each other.
Oh, interesting. When they're in different namespaces, they fight with
Or-
each other.
Well, if they're in the same namespace, they definitely will.
Wow, how would you do that? How would you install
Just make another
Velero?
deployment, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to do. I mean, you can do this,
Ah.
you know, and we've had people say, ooh, let me see if I can run multiple. If I run multiple in parallel, if I change the, you know, if I deploy them as a
Got
set,
it.
and, right? And it's like, ooh, watch it go fast. It's like, no, that's a really bad idea.
I see why people would do that now. Okay, that makes sense. I'll keep that in mind in the design. Like in the future, maybe this could
Yeah,
be something that,
that's not something to make part of this design, but you just mark that in there. I don't know.
and then
Scott,
for
Fong,
the
any thoughts on this direction?
oh,
So
before
what is,
before
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, before further input, I just had another question. So this SSR object will be created during Velero install. Now, the way it works
Like,
currently is
To
Velero,
be
whenever
created
you,
when the server comes up.
oh, when the, sorry, okay. When after server, I'm taking notes, comes up. Okay. Now, currently, when every single time you say Velero version, it creates another SSR with a unique like hash tag to, you know. So these, should I allow them to still come up, or will they just read the one that we create at the very beginning?
I would just change the version command so it reads those.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. I love it. All right. Yeah. And then now I'm open to, yeah, what do,
I had one
Sarkana?
question. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what is the server status used for? Is it informative or does that affect the behavior? So the reason I'm
Yes.
asking is
If you scroll
for
down, Jonas, just a little bit, just to answer your first question, if you type in Velero version, the output of service status details are shown here. So you see where I wrote in the command line Velero version, it shows the Velero client, the Velero the git commit, the server, the version. I was using a compiled test, and you can see I added what I proposed, what the new status would look like. It'll be server status partially ready. This is kind of
Okay.
my design doc in the issue.
so the
But I will
reason I'm
actually
asking,
based on Dave Smith Uchita's feedback, I'll go ahead and actually create a design doc proposal thing, PR.
right? So the reason I'm asking is so PowerProtect doesn't create a BSL with the name default. So then that doesn't mean that server is partially ready, right? There are other BSLs that can be used. And that was one thing. And secondly, like when PowerProtect deploys Velero, there are no BSLs. the BSLs are
Oh,
created when a
okay.
policy is created, and then that BSL is pushed into the cluster where the backup can be written to. So both cases, I mean, from the backup server point of view, the Velero is ready, right? As soon as we push BSL, it can go ahead and write. So in that case, should it be still ready, or there can be some control we can use to?
Well, I think
Sure.
Velero will go ahead and execute something if it can. I think it's more a matter of maybe you can weigh in as Frankie does with design doc, what phases you'd like to see so you could monitor the health of the Velero core. So we have like a phase like no BSLs or something.
You gotta remember we have Restic too. If Restic is down, you want to show it Restic's down, right? There's multiple.
Yeah, but yeah, we can figure out some different states or phases or maybe multiple ones.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, at least default, the name default should not be considered. I don't know. Maybe the first condition, right, where it said partial. If default is not available, it's partially ready. That shouldn't be the case, right? As long as we have BSL, doesn't matter what the name is. It should be ready.
The way I understand Velero is you need a default BSL. Otherwise, that's
No, because if you can,
No.
you can just set the BSL, I think.
you.
So
but don't-
Sakana is using it this way.
Right. So Power Protect uses it
Oh,
this
I
way, and
see.
also Power Protect disables the BSL checks. So it puts a very high. I forgot now what is the property in the BSL, but you put a very high number so Velero doesn't keep checking, because Power Protect itself keeps checking its BSLs and it will notify user. So it doesn't. It sets a BSL check period, whatever that was, to a very high number that it never. Velero itself doesn't do a check.
Oh, okay. So just to make it more clear for myself, so you're saying that you can create multiple BSLs, none of them are set as default, but you could yourself choose which one Velero uses?
Yeah, in the backup request, we specify the BSL.
Oh, nice. Okay. I saw comments in the Velero source code saying that the default will be deprecated or removed from the code. I guess it's already kind of happening. It's kind of been disabled.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not required, I think. I mean, the thing is that like it's a really handy thing for your easy straight line install. So we don't want to make everybody have to like type in minus backup storage location every time if they only have one. So it seems pretty reasonable to have a way to set a default. But there's definitely other use cases that are more complicated or interesting. So I think this is a really good conversation. So Frank, if you can do a basic design doc and make sure to include Sakana as one of the people on this.
Yep,
and then
absolutely.
we can do some more back and forth on this. And it's really good having you, your input, Sakana.
Sure. Yeah. So we are, Power Protect is using BSL in different ways. So yeah, we want to make sure all cases are covered as we design this.
Excellent.
Yeah, because I think this will be very useful to have the status so everybody who's using Velero can now automatically check. Eventually, this will roll back like the end-to-end tests and even the installer, right? The end result of the installer should be it waits for the server to come up and be healthy, or time out and say it's not coming healthy within this time, and here's the status that you're at.
Right. Yeah. So there was other thing, maybe I don't know if it's a bug on, but we see this message periodically, actually quite often, where it says default BSL not present, but nothing. It doesn't seem to affect the functionality per se. But so that was something we were thinking of making a change to not print that message.
Yeah, I mean, it seems it's one of those. I don't know. It's like, yeah, I definitely see your point. And how do we get this to the person who just didn't set one? And then they're like, why did my backups not work? Because I guarantee you we're going to get that question.
Yeah,
Right, because
maybe we could change it into like some warning instead of an error, because in our case, customer asking why you guys having this error, why?
Right. So any
or
backup
even
fails, they point us to this one. Oh, you
or
have
maybe it
default.
doesn't. It's not a warning. It's not continually happening in the log messages, but when someone actually tries to do a backup without specifying one, the backup command comes back and says, "Hey, there's no default set. It's not happening."
That sounds more reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
because I
Some of
don't,
it is too like being able, like when people come to us with questions and we look at the log files, like, well, because you didn't do this.
right. Yeah, I don't use, when I do Velero backup create, I don't include the BSL. I just depend on the default. So for someone like me, it'd be good to say, hey, you didn't set a default, or you have so many BSLs, but you didn't choose which one to run it on.
Yep.
Cool, that was all I had. Thanks for your time. I'll go ahead and make a design doc PR, and we could continue discussion there.
Yeah, that's really good. Thanks, Frankie.
Awesome. Thank you, Frankie.
No problem.
All right. I think that was all the discussion topics that we had today. I do not have the contributor shout outs today, so I'll make sure to update those for next time. Thank you everyone for joining.
Hey, Vanessa, I have
Yeah,
one
sorry.
comment. So we
Sure,
had been
shoot.
having this discussion about those vulnerabilities, right, in Velero. So Power Protect includes Velero as part of the solution, and customers now, like most Power Protect customers are enterprise customers. So all of those go through scanning, and we are getting beat up
Yes.
saying, okay, what is your plan? When will you address this? So Dell Security Office is asking us, okay, when will be the next release where you will have these resolved? So I know we are having, go ahead, dear.
So Wenkai looked into it. He root caused the problem, and he believes the fix is relatively easy. There's an update needed we need to pick up a later version of Restic and a later version of the Azure SDK for the Azure plugin. And then the question for us is, do we go ahead and push forward with like a 1.7.1 release, like within, by the end of the month, or do we just let it go for a little bit? So weigh in with Eleanor. I know you have a date to get back. And the question is, do we need to do a release? We started talking internally about having maybe a monthly security release potentially. I think we've reduced it a lot by going to the distro-less containers, but these things are going to keep popping up because
Right.
they're not there when you release, and then suddenly they appear.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fine as long as we have some date we can give, saying, okay, this is the date we are planning the next release, or we'll get the next build with these fixes. So this Azure plugin, so there are, I remember there were 2 critical and 3 high, right? So they all will be addressed by this.
I don't remember offhand. I think we narrowed it down. Like 2 of them were just this JWT, and I think those are the only ones we think are still open. In fact, Wenkai even put in. So if you look, I've got PR 4254. Wenkai put in. Let me put in the chat, and that's for the fixes for those 2 CVEs.
Okay. So these are the critical ones. That's okay. I don't want to hold up the meeting.
Yeah.
We can discuss.
No,
offline.
so those are the JWT related ones, the Go JWT. And yeah, please go ahead and let Eleanor know what you need. And we're just
Sure.
going to make a decision in the next couple of days. It's really, I mean, making a release is its own amount of friction, right? So it's like, do we need to do it, or do we not need to do it? And your input's very valuable. So
Sure.
if you need it, we can go ahead and do it.
Yeah. So once these images these fixes are in, we can do another scan on our end as well. Yes.
Yeah, and we can also just, we can give you a build. I think we can go ahead and merge these. They're not, but I do want to run through a round of testing before we merge.
Sure.
Yeah, also related to that is the OpenShift OADP will also will be sync with this, right? Because when we release 1.7.1 with this fix, then probably OADP will also picking up this and have a release, because we have product on both OpenShift side and understand Velero side. So we will need that fixed for both of them.
Yeah, so once Velero releases 1.7.1, I imagine on the OADP side, the next release then we'd upgrade that as well.
Definitely need this because we have a customer who asking for this vulnerability, so we need to address it.
For sure. So Dave, you'll look into this?
Yeah, no, Eleanor is coordinating whether or not we do another
Okay.
release in when,
Okay.
but yeah, we're rolling forward on those.
Perfect, perfect. Any other discussion topics for today? All right. Thank you everyone for joining today. Have a fantastic rest of the week and talk to you all soon. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
Right, thanks.